2 more weeks to go. This is Friday Night Fast Break. John Alba, Matt Randall, and Matt, we are so close to the tourney. You can taste it.
Yeah, we are locked and loaded for a final run before the playoffs are here, and it's time to look at what's ahead.
Well, we're starting tonight with the boys, specifically Classes B and C. Let's check out how Class B looked coming into tonight. MDI 14-2, Herman, Presque Isle. Orono's the team we're going to be looking at tonight in Class B in particular, and you see the rest of it rounding out there, those top 12 spots. That's what everyone is looking at, Matt. There's a little bit of separation as you get towards the bottom.
Exactly. Well, it's tight in Class B. It's also tight in Class C at the top. Fort Fairfield actually came into tonight at the top spot, although George Stevens was undefeated. Then you have Hodgdon and Lee rounding out 3 and 4, and then you see the rest of them there. It's going to actually be pretty tight for the final couple playoff spots in Class C as well. So as you see there, John, it is neck and neck at the top of Class C on the boys' end. Despite being undefeated, as you saw, George Stevens, well, they're sitting in second, but there was plenty of points available to them playing Ellsworth from Class B. Let's go there, why don't we? The two rivals squaring off in Blue Hill this evening. A high-scoring affair early on. Ellsworth gets the steal here, and Zach Harris takes it in to give his Eagles a 9-6 lead. However, GSA turned it on from then on. Jared Chase goes behind the back to Percy Zentz, who gets the layup plus the foul. Stevens going into the half up 21 points. And they held on thanks in large part to Taylor Shildroff.
He's unstoppable.
One of the best offensive players in the state. He knocks down the 3 there, and then just moments later on the steal, why not pull from deep again? And that's good. George Stevens stays undefeated. They're now 17-0, and they win it 75-44.
Unbelievable. Over in Orono, the Red Riots hosting PCHS in another BC matchup. Pirates competitive early. Bryce Gilbert showing off the Jason Kidd-esque touch to the floater is good. 4-all at that point in the first. Orono playing from behind. This will help. They'll raise her feet to Keenan Collette. Will it go? It does. Count it. And the foul. 12-11 Orono after the free throw. Pirates down 12 late in the second year. It's Gilbert missing, but Damian True's there for the putback. Orono controlling the rest of the way, though. Before the end of the half, Collette taking his sweet time. You got to get it off before the buzzer. He says,
just pull it.
From beyond NBA range, bucket. 40-23 Orono at the half. And then this right here in the third is actually Jake Kaufman's 500th career rebound with Orono. He gets the N1. Congratulations to him. Orono wins 70-52.
Well, a few other area scores. In Class A, Madomic Valley stays unbeaten with an 80-42 win over Morse. And then in Class B, Washington Academy goes on the road and wins over Foxcroft 72-66. But the Foxcroft girls would salvage the night with a 36-21 win over Dexter. And then finally, Stearns girls stays undefeated with a 63-39 victory over their rivals from Skank.
So they managed to keep things up. Well, plenty of games in the book tonight, and we're one step closer to the tournament. Now that brings us to tonight's edition of The Rebound.
And well, we're going to make our tournament projections, and what the fields in Classes B and C will look like. We're talking both boys and girls here, so let's start in Class B. Here is what my field, John, looks like. MDI, Herman, Orono, and Presque Isle taking the top 4 seeds in the boys. Holton, Presque Isle, Herman, and Winslow taking the top 4 seeds in the girls. And it's actually pretty interesting at the bottom of both of those. I have Holton and John Bapps just sneaking in on the boys' end, and on the girls, Mount View and Washington Academy as well.
So I'm taking a look at that, and I got to say, there's actually not a lot of disagreements on my end, Matt. Take a look at mine, and then we'll discuss what both of ours are looking like. MDI, Herman, Orono, Presque Isle, Central, Winslow, Belfast, Washington Academy, Ellsworth, Mount View, Holton, Bapps. I think Bapps squeaks in. This will be huge for them. Obviously, last year came so close on the boys. And over on the girls, I think we're in agreement pretty much with Holton, Presque Isle, and Herman. A little bit of change in mind. I think Bapps is in with the 6th seed. Central's coming off a little bit of a rough week with the stuff they went through with Diane Rollins. I think they're in at 7. And I think Ellsworth is going to slip in at the 10 seed on the girls' end. I mean, let's talk about Class B here real quick before we look at Class C. It really comes down to, Matt, MDI. Herman. Herman. It's a name we've been hearing all season long. It seems like we both think the girls are probably slotted in for 3 and not going to be moving up.
But I think we're both in agreement that while Herman can definitely give MDI a run for their money for that top spot, especially with MDI showing, I guess, not any weaknesses really, but that they're not invincible. Herman could possibly squeak in there at 1, but as we saw them play each other, if we were doing power ranking, so to say, I know that's not what we're doing here.
No, it's not.
But I think MDI showed their class when they faced each other down in Bernard Parody Gym.
They did. That was a huge matchup. I still think Herman is a dynamic squad on the boys' end. Orno's the one that we have to talk about right
True.
now. This is a veteran-loaded team.
Yep.
They have natural athleticism.
A lot of size.
A lot of size. You've got a D3 point guard in Nate DeSisto.
Right.
You've got a guy like Jake Kaufman who, when he gets going down low, is a force. Keenan Collette was back to his normal self tonight. You've got Jackson Cooch. You got Connor Robertson. They can shoot. They are one of the best coach teams in all of Class B in terms of basketball IQ. You think that's a team that can make a run?
Well, it's always a team that can make a run. We saw them last year.
as
I
a four.
believe they were a
They were a
four,
four.
and went to the regional championship in Class B North, losing to Ellsworth there, but they knocked off the 1 seed in Old Town. So this group has been there before, and they actually did the same thing in Class C the year before, so they've been in the regional finals. They know how to get it done at the important stages.
Would you say all 4 of those teams towards the top of B are more or less in the same league with one another?
I think MDI is probably a step above the rest, but Herman, Orono, you throw Central in there, possibly Winslow, though they had a bit of a step back against MCI. I think those teams are all pretty much, you toss a coin and see who lands where.
Man.
Yeah.
And it's just, the tournament is so close.
It's
And
so close. You can
Class
tell
B
we're
last year-
excited.
Class B last year was so much fun to cover, too,
Yeah.
especially with that Bryce Holman kid making those shots.
Yeah, that was fun.
How about Class C, Matt?
Well, let's go to Class C now. Here is a look at my picks. You got George Stevens, Fort Fairfield, and Hodgdon, the top 3 seeds, and then I also slotted Lee in there at 4. On the girls' end, Stearns taking the top spot for me. George Stevens getting the 2 seed there. PCHS and Woodland rounding out the top 4. And now, if you look at the bottom of the boys, I got Narraguega sneaking in there, Sumner sneaking in there. On the girls' end, Fort Fairfield, Bucksport, and PVHS all getting into the tournament as well. You see plenty of other teams in the mix. Narraguegas, last year's state champion, at 6 on the girls' end for me. It's just a very interesting year how things change from last year to this year.
Especially PVHS. They're at number 12
Exactly.
after the run they made last year. I like those, but here's what mine look like. Let's pull those up, why don't we? I, on the other hand, agree with you with Narraguegas being a 6 on the girls' end. Stearns, George Stevens for me, PCHS. Woodland, Madawaska. I know you were going up and back and forth between Madawaska and Fort Kent there based on the games remaining. That's on the girls' end. I have George Stevens as your number 1 seed on the boys' end of things. Fort Fairfield made a run last season. I'm flipping Sumner and Narraguegas in boys. I think Narraguegas, which will be good. I mean, Narraguegas struggled last year. They'll find a way back into it this year. Bucksport at 6 for me. So Lee did not come to play this past Monday against Bucksport.
No, they
That
did
was
not.
a bad loss for Lee, and it was something for me that opened my eyes and said, okay, the Golden Bucks might be a team that can play spoiler once we get into the meat and bones of this tournament as a 6 seed. And I think that would be a great spot for them because the way matchups can end up, you can find a way to get out there, Matt, and open some eyes.
I think you're right about that. The interesting thing to keep an eye on in Class C is, as you saw in the changes between our picks and the standings coming in, is that George Stevens, we have them taking the top spot from Fort Fairfield. Fort Fairfield and Hodgdon, who now are 2 and 3, they do still play each other. So the winner of that could really make things interesting and pushing George Stevens to make sure that they have to go undefeated
And
to
these
take the top
are
spot.
obviously 2 quality teams, whichever way you look
Exactly.
at it, that George Stevens, one of which would have to go through,
Right.
if those things were to stand up
Yeah.
as 2 and 3. Next week we're going to take a look at Class A and Class D, but we haven't touched on Class A much tonight at all. But that's going to be pretty interesting over the course of the next few weeks, Matt.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we're used to seeing the Hamden boys lead the pack, but this has been an interesting year for their new group. They lost that home winning streak last week, 62 games, over, done. So how are they regrouping with only a couple games left before the tourney? That's a question we asked them about in this week's edition of the Hardwood Spotlight.
For the past 7 years, the toughest task in high school basketball has been defeating Hamden Academy at the Stable. The Broncos had notched 62 straight wins at home dating back to Martin Luther King Day of 2010. But 1 week ago, that all ended at the hands of the Bangor Rams.
Being able to be part of it for those 7 years was something that was really special. And when I get done coaching at some point in life and think back about 7 straight years of winning, 62 straight, it'll be a great thing to think about.
Despite the streak lasting for most of the season, this young Hampden group knew all along they'd be charged with creating a new legacy. And now that has taken a literal meaning.
It's kind of like getting the monkey off your back. I mean, it was disappointing, but you just got to keep going forward. Being able to come back in the stable and get that win again is just a great start for us.
The Broncos won last night's home game against Skowhegan, putting them back on track for the last couple of weeks of the regular season. But to do so, there's one fix they all knew had to be made.
We just need to come out and play hard on defense every game, because that's what drives us. If we play hard on defense, that opens up a lot more offense, running out, getting stops, just opens up a lead for us.
As long as that improves, the only other hurdle could simply be inexperience. With veteran groups throughout the last few seasons, many of these players have yet to hit the floor on the big stage.
I think that if you ask these guys, they're excited about the tournament, but I'm not sure if they're real ready for it yet. I mean, until you get out there and do it, it's a big step. If we can get through that first round game, I think we'll be fine.
But just as they hope to start a brand new streak at home, the Broncos are working to continue building a new Hampden legacy in the trophy case as well.
I know that we're young, and the tournament's going to be a really big stage for everyone. It might be a little, nervous for that, but I think we're all excited for it. We're all looking forward to it. We're all really just ready to make our own mark.
They all have to understand that it's still the same game. It's just in a bigger environment. We'll see how it goes.
And some action going on in Unified
Yes.
as well this afternoon, Matt, as that Hampden Academy team will look to get things rolling. Let's take you back to Orono. Foxcroft and Orono going at it. The Ponies had it rolling early. The freshman Chase Paul gets a good look. He sinks it. He's pretty stoked about that. Ponies up 3-2 a little later. Bell freshman John Avalar from way downtown. Book it. Ponies up 4. But it's Dylan Farnham going coast to coast, pulling up, gets Red Riots cooking, but this one map belonged to Foxcroft. Kyle Blake. This is what we call poetry in motion.
Nice runner there.
Foxcroft goes on to win by a score of 50-34. That's all we got here for the high school portion of the program. When we return, we're talking college hoops, because we just love that too. This is Friday Night Fast Break. Do not go away.
Welcome back. A few Division III matchups tonight we had our eyes on. Let's take a look at what happened there. The Husson women maintaining their dominance and rolling over Linden State by a score of 75-43. The Eagles dropped more than 20 points in the final 3 frames. They now move to 17-1 on the season, a perfect 3-0 in North Atlantic play. Also in action tonight, Maine Maritime earned a 69-51 win over Johnson State. Elaine Felix dropped 18 for the Mariners in the win. MMA improves to 7-6 in the conference with the W.
And over on the men's end, Husson just squeaking out an 80-74 win over Linden State. Raheem Anderson doing it again, 24 points off the bench for him. The Eagles also got some help from Mitch Worcester. He had 22 of his own. 11-2 in the NAC is Husson. And looking at Maine Maritime Academy, they dropped to Johnson State 76-61. Dave Muchnick's squad got off to a slow start with just 24 first half points. Mariners got 19 from Tyler Thayer, but just wasn't good enough. Mariners now 1-12 on the season in the conference.
All right, well, turning our attention now to UMaine, it does seem like women's basketball is set to make a run ahead of the conference tournament.
In fact, that's where all the focus is right now. The Black Bears picked up a big win over Vermont this week to move into the 4 seed in America East, but they're in a 3-way tie with Binghamton and UMBC in that spot. The first 2 rounds of the conference tournament are in Portland, so Maine has a chance to show up big, and even the freshmen know it's time to deliver.
I mean, it's the principal objective, to get there, and we know that we can do it. We are working so hard to get there, and it's in Maine, and we're playing Maine University, so we know that it can be very special.
We'll hit on that more later on, but the men's team has struggled to find an identity this year, Matt, but one of the bright spots this season has been sophomore Ryan Bernstein.
Yeah, well, the guard they call Boz is growing into his role with the Black Bears, and he's been plenty vocal out on the court, so we wanted to give him a voice on Friday Night Fast Break here, as he's the subject of this week's version of A Minute With.
Jesus got a lot to do in New York, maybe New York, I don't know. New York. That's tough, but I'd have to say Italian food. Italian food fills you up and it's so good. Garlic bread, everything you got from the beginning to the end of the meal, dessert too, everything.